And in just a few hours, the Supreme Court will hand down its final rulings of the term. The High Court just ruled on several cases, including mail-in ballots, if a president can fire heads of most independent agencies, and whether a Federal Reserve governor can stay in her position. Today, the court plans to weigh in on arguably really the biggest case of the term, birthright citizenship. If you remember, on his first day in office of his second term, President Trump signed an executive order effectively ending it, but court stepped in. So SLU professor and associate dean of the School of Law, Marcia McCormick, is here to give us an analysis of the impact of the decision today. Thank you so much for being with us. You really explained it really well in the 6 o'clock hour. As I told you, this is one of those things that a lot of people are watching, so we appreciate you being with us today.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
So first off, can you explain to us what does the Constitution say and what is the administration's argument in all this?
Right. So the 14th Amendment says that all people born or naturalized in the United States and under the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state in which they reside. And for really pretty much the whole history of since the 14th Amendment was adopted, people understood that to mean that anyone born in the United States was a U.S. citizen. The government's argument is that this phrase, under the jurisdiction thereof, has some special meaning. That means that some people who are born in the United States are not actually entitled to be citizens.
And Marcia, we know that birthright citizenship is in the Constitution, so if the High Court sides with the Trump administration, what impact would we initially see?
So that's really hard to say because we aren't always affected immediately by what the Constitution means or not, but it's really the ground for challenging the actions of the government. And so the government would likely act very quickly to continue to its immigration efforts and might expand them to people who are naturalized citizens and maybe even some citizens of the United States.
Well, on that note, if the court does rule in favor, would that mean that immigrant birthright citizens would have to leave? Or once the case is decided after that point, there would be no birthright citizens? What does it look like?
Well, it's really hard to say. So basically all of us who are born in the United States, even if our parents are citizens, we're all birthright citizens. This term really had no meaning before the current arguments were being made, or no special legal meaning anyway. And so there's no obligation necessarily that anyone whose citizenship would be questioned would be required to leave, but certainly the federal government would likely engage in efforts to deport those people that it didn't want here.
We know that President Trump has claimed that no other country has birthright citizenship like the U.S. Is that necessarily true?
That is absolutely not true. Almost every country in the Western Hemisphere has birthright citizenship. And in fact, Britain, the common law of Britain until relatively recently, also had a rule of birthright citizenship.
We also know that the administration has pointed out towards the so-called birth tourism phenomenon. What does the law say about all this?
So the law says nothing about the concept of birth tourism, but in fact just says that everyone who's born in the United States is a citizen of the United States, regardless of the reason that their parents might have been in the country when they were born.
Now, we've been talking about this all morning. We know ultimately, really, this case is all about President Trump's push to crack down on immigration. So in the legal context, would a decision in this case serve that purpose?
It would. It would give cover and a legal basis for the government's current efforts. It would make it much harder to challenge those efforts in court.
I know so much of this is like if and when. So if the court does not rule in favor, is it possible we could see another challenge down the road?
It's possible, but I am not aware of other arguments other than the one that's being made right now, sort of waiting in the wings to challenge birthright citizenship.
And on the other end, if administration's argument is accepted, does this really open a door for wider interpretations of Constitution? What are other significant issues that you can expect to be on the docket, do you think?
Well, I don't know that this case actually opens the door wide open any more than any other case when it comes to either the 14th Amendment or other amendments. I mean, there's been a real push to reinterpret or find unenforceable lots of constitutional amendments over the last several years.
And then can you also really explain how the U.S. is different from other countries in terms of birthright citizenship laws?
Well, the U.S. isn't different from lots of other countries in terms of birthright citizenship laws, but there are some countries that have this rule. I won't use the Latin, but basically it says that citizenship is inherited from your mother's citizenship. So citizenship is inherited by sort of blood rather than the soil on which you were born.
I think a lot of people are closely watching this, trying to follow everything that's going on. It's really confusing, in all honesty. You're explaining it so well. What should viewers be listening for when this decision ultimately comes down?
I think that the viewers should just be listening for the court to talk about, well, the concept of birthright citizenship and what the 14th Amendment's plain language and the intent of the framers was.
What does this mean right now? I mean, you've been doing this for a while now. You've been at SLU for several years. Have you ever seen anything like this?
I have not seen a challenge like this to something that was so well settled and accepted really throughout the entire history of its existence until maybe the last year or two.
I'm sure y'all having really interesting conversations right now in your classrooms about all this.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, it's definitely a good, I'm sure if you're in a law school, a good conversation piece in all this and understanding what everything means.
It is, but at the same time, I'll tell you that law students are just like everybody else. They don't really know what to do with it either. We just have a few more tools to talk about it.
Right, y'all are just better at explaining it than the average
Something
bear,
like
right?
that,
Thank you
right.
so much, Marcia. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.